Hi, I'm Brian from Atomic-Moto, and I'm out on a spectacular Central Oregon day. I found a little hidey hole off of Road 530. It's a little secret spot that I go to all the time, way out in the desert, and I'm doing a field review of the Gaerne Fastback Enduro boots. As always, I like to start with the basics and the bullet points on the Fastback Enduro like everyone else does. The Fastback comes in sizes 7 or 41 EU all the way up to a 49 or a 14 in US sizes. It retails for $332.95 as of the filming of this video. It comes in one color, this brown and black, which I'm wearing here. And I don't have the weight specs with me, no notes today, but I'll put that spec up on screen. As far as the construction of the Fastback, now it is a welt sole boot. That is the method of construction that we prefer. Gaerne has a unique pattern on their welt sole. It is mostly smooth in and around the foot peg area. However, there is lugging on the outer front of the foot and on the heel, so that gives you a little bit of traction when you're off the motorcycle. And in addition to that, I was able to move my feet around without even noticing the lugging on this Ford road ride that I'm doing, which again is quite a bit of shifting, braking, moving around for whoops and corners and things like that. As I mentioned, the sole is a welt sole. We talked about the pattern, but the other thing that I like to talk about is the rigidity of it. I think that the industry is headed towards soft, flexible soles because customers want them to feel good in the showroom. And this is a trend that I don't agree with. And thankfully, the Fastback Enduro doesn't fall into that. It has a nice rigid welt sole. And why is that important? Well, it's important because quite often when you're riding off-road, you'll get a frontal impact, and that occurs from a couple different situations. The most common is you're riding by a stationary object like a rock or a stump or a cut-off log. You don't see it and you clip it with your toe as you're passing by. If the toe of the boot bends, then when you clip that stationary object, it will bend your foot up, and that'll likely result in an injury. The other possibility is the bike falls over. As it does so, your toe digs into the ground, the bike falls on your heel, and it folds your foot in half. You don't want to do that, and so that's why a rigid welt sole is much better. Tendency is to buy something that feels really comfortable and soft and flexible in the showroom. A lot of brands are going in that direction, but we personally don't feel like that's a good path. It's a 4-buckle boot. That's tradition. It's nice to see that they didn't cheap out and try to cut it down to 3 in the name of course, trying to improve the boot, but really what it is to try to reduce cost. But Gaerne's buckles are excellent. We've worked with them for a very long time. They haven't changed in a long time. That means they are easy to obtain if you need to replace them, although I doubt that you'll ever have to because they are super durable and they work great. They almost never fail. I banged them into rocks and things like that, and they last quite well. One thing about the buckles that is interesting is the upper two have adjustable positions. They have 2 positions. You are able to take the buckle off and move it farther forward on the flap of the boot, and that is to facilitate larger calves. The Fastback Enduro has a lot of plastic around the surface. It's got a razorback design on the back of the leg, a nice big shin plate, plastic on the inside of the ankle wrapping up and over the toe, plastic on the outer side, and all of this is kind of like an exoskeleton. There's quite a bit of support and impact protection all around the boot. Fastback is a mechanically hinged boot. That's something that we like. Mechanical hinges are excellent. It's a way of getting a lot of plastic on a boot, which gives you protection, but still allowing the boot to bend because there is a mechanical pivot for that plastic to pivot on. Gaerne's Fastback Enduro has a modified mechanical pivot. It's actually a single pivot design on either side of the ankle, but then they put another pivot on the second strap up from the bottom, and that helps the boot when you're flexing so that the strap isn't forced down into your foot. It actually pivots and moves and stays vertically across the top of your foot. And that area of the boot has a very large cutout, and that cutout really facilitates the bending and flexing of this boot. This is the first ride I've taken in them, and I needed no break-in. I had no problems, needed no break-in to operate the shift and brake lever. It was just as easy to do as my well-worn-in Gaerne SG12s. Another detail that's interesting to me, maybe trivial to most people, is that when I was initially staring at the Fastback, I noticed that a lot of the panels on it looked like they came from the old SG10. The old SG10 was one of my favorite boots of all time. It was the best fitting off-road boot that I've ever tried on or recommended to customers. And the Fastback looked like it had a lot of panels from the old SG10. Gaerne does that once in a while. It's called parts bin engineering, and they do it quite a bit with models. In the case of this boot, they didn't reuse the same molds as the SG10, but they actually used the same plastic shapes. And the boot is really reminiscent of that old SG10 that I like so much. It's nice and wide in the forefoot. I'll get to the fit in a moment. Nice and narrow in the heel. It's got quite a bit of protection. The flex, though, is really the star of this show. This boot has spectacular flex, and that means that it's really easy for braking and shifting, and also for walking. Now, I was walking around quite a bit here when I was staging, getting ready to film this this setup in my little space out here, and spent a good time hiking around, looking at some rocks, scouting locations. These boots are super easy to walk in. Fit of the Gaerne Fastback Enduro is true to Gaerne form, which is excellent. It's nice and wide in the forefoot. I'll drop in some photos of that to show you how it looks. Plenty of width in the forefoot, and nice and narrow through the heel. This boot would easily accommodate an aftermarket footbed, which is a good thing because the footbed in it is pretty cheap and really shouldn't come with the boot. They should upgrade those. But the fit of this boot is nice and wide, and it's nice and supportive in the ankle. There's a good amount of pad. I took the Fastback Enduro out for a field review today. We're on the infamous Ford Road route, which is an interesting route, southeast out of Bend through the desert. So I have about 70 miles on the boots so far, probably about 2.5 hours or so of solid riding. And so there are a few things about this boot that jump out. First and foremost, for all of the welt sole boots that I've tried, this is about the most flexible. This boot is easier to flex than my SG12s, and is easier to flex than a Crossfire 2TA. It's a little bit less protective. There's a little less support in and around the ankle area, but as far as the flex for braking and shifting, that is the killer app of this particular boot. Needed no brake in at all. Got on the bike, started hammering right away. No problems with shifting or braking at all. Let me summarize this so I can get back to riding. The Fastback Enduro is in a line of winners. Gaerne's line is outstanding. We love their boots. But in a line of winner models from Gaerne, the Fastback may be pound for pound, dollar for dollar, the strongest offering at its respective price point in Gaerne's line. And that's saying a lot. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that it is more protective or more sophisticated than high-end models such as the SG12 or the former Predator or the CD Crossfire, but not everybody wants to reach up that high to that price point to try and get a pair of boots. And if you're looking for something in this range, man, I can't see why you wouldn't take a hard look at these. These are outstanding, and I'm going to hold back a little till we do that comp review, that comparison review, but these things are Super Bomber recommended. And so that is a good time to wrap up. We are www.atomic-moto.com, home of the Bombers. We are mission focused on actually using gear out in the field and understanding how it's made by looking at it in the office, and understanding how it works by looking at it out here. In addition to that, we have a great YouTube channel, and I would love it if you clicked like on this video and click subscribe so you can catch future ones. And as I like to always say, we hope to see you out here on your bike.